Hi, my name is Ryan, and I play out-of-touch guitars because I'm old. Every so often I get a comment that basically reads something along the lines of, Fenders and Gibsons are show-off guitars for boomers. The best guitar players out there play modern guitars like multi-scale and headless guitars. I also get comments that usually read something along the lines of, Explorers were invented in the 90s and they're such a played out and gimmicky design. To which usually I respond, sounds to me like they're ahead of their time. Because as most of us know, Ted McCarty actually invented Explorers in the 1950s. And I have gotten the 90s Explorer invention comment probably about 50 times. And the truth is, every generation feels this way, especially when it comes to new trends in guitars. So multi-scale and headless guitars, forgiving some of the Stranberger guitars from like the 90s and probably even a little earlier. But multi-scale and headless guitars are still new to the market. And you still have that rush of, I play something different, and you want to kind of parade your pride and make your stand, mark your line in the sand with saying, hey, look at me, this is what I play, I'm innovative, I'm good at what I do, I'm trying to push something new, even though it ends up being that you're kind of pushing something in people's faces and kind of trying to make the old seem like it's old and out of style and useless. And hey, I know this because I've done it in the past. I used to be young. Believe it or not, there was a time in my life where I couldn't play Strat style guitars. I was young, I was stupid, and basically I was still learning to play guitar, and what I would do is I would hunch myself over, and this here would dig into my sternum. But hey, it was a great excuse to play V guitars. And again, I was young, I was dumb, and that was my choice. I paraded it around. So if I ever saw someone playing a Strat or a Les Paul or anything like that, I'd be like, you play a Strat and you play a Les Paul? I play V guitars. They are way better, and I'm cooler. Wasn't cool then, not cool now. But as I aged and got more experience and went through different phases of not liking guitars, liking guitars, hating those guitars, hating these guitars, hating that, I kind of grew into my own taste and moved away from certain trends if I wasn't using them or taking advantage of them. It was only about a year ago that I actually fell in love with Strats. So the more youthful guitarists, the younger generation as it were, they have their own little glitches, and they absolutely should. It's part of life, it's part of gaining your experience, it's part of sticking with things if it actually makes sense to do so. But the older generation, do we have our faults? Absolutely. You know how I know I'm old? Because I've said numerous times and had discussions with other people numerous times saying the newer generation, they play guitar like they're playing a video game. They hit a whole bunch of notes, but there's not really any feel, which is a sentiment I know for sure that the previous generation has said about my generation's playing, and guess what? Your generation will say that about the next generation. They probably even said this when people were playing Pong. So the older generations, they definitely have their go-tos. They've got their Les Pauls, their SGs, their Strats, their Telecasters, their Explorers, their Vs, Firebirds, their semi-hollow bodies, and hollow bodies. There are other guitars for sure, but generally this is what the younger generation will think of and name drop, I guess you would say. I've gotten to the point now where I've got almost 30 years under my belt of playing, so I've gotten to the point where I know that I like good quality guitars with good quality components. Now I'm going to list Gibson in there, and a lot of people are going to be like, you can't do that, they got a bad history. But I really do like Gibson guitars. I'd recommend that you actually go and play them first. Some of them have their setbacks, some of them are absolutely magical, But I really enjoy nitro finish guitars, the nitrocellulose gloss finish guitars. Set neck with a gloss nitro on it is a very ideal guitar for me. And going through my very large guitar history over almost 30 years, I found that the only real bolt-on necks that I enjoy are usually Strat and Telecaster necks through Fender guitars. And even the Strats that I do buy, I tend to stick with the 2-point tremolo system just because I find that a little easier to adjust. And Strats themselves have a multitude of tonal options, especially if you get one that has like the S1 switch in it. Kind of gives you 10 different sounds in one guitar. Now again, they do have a multitude of tonal options, but I generally always play them on the neck pickup in either E flat standard or D standard. And Les Pauls with no weight relief in them have a really good balance of both presence and resonance, so you can really kind of get a good feeling in the body. And palm muting and playing leads where you're really digging in, they kind of feel incredible to me. SGs are pretty lightweight, and if you got a little bit of muddy gain going on, it's easier for you to kind of get a dirtier feeling to your playing. So it's quicker to make this face. You know what? I'm gonna say it. Yes, you do sound inexperienced when you say that the Epiphone SG Prophecy or SG Modern or whatever it is better than a Gibson, especially when you say a Gibson custom shop. You sound bitter. It might be a popular thing to do. The young kids do like to troll. But it could be that you prefer it to a Gibson. One of the reasons behind that, other than pricing, and again, when you're bitter, generally it sounds like you can't afford it, which is who cares if you can't afford it. But it could be that you don't like the nitro finish on a guitar. That's not a problem. A lot of people don't like that. They prefer poly. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of the components that are going to be in your Chinese-made Epiphone, experienced builder Chinese-made Epiphones, they're going to be inferior. It's just how it works. I know they might be using CTS pots, but the worst part of it is your argument as to why it's better than a Gibson is just because, and hey, it has Gibson pickups in it. So your argument that the Epiphone is better than the Gibson is that it has the same pickups in the Gibson? And you know what? When I was younger, I made those arguments too. Generally for myself, it was out of inexperience and lack of budget. So I think the arguments that my friends and I made were, well, the Epiphone stuff is just the second choice woods of Gibson. It's still a Gibson, but it's the only difference is the woods. Long and the short of it, if you like it, play it. Who cares? And Telecasters. No, wait. Telecasters. That's not it. Telecasters. Every generation gives the Telecaster a pass. I don't know why. I know that when it's on the neck pickup and you got a little bit of breakup going on, it sounds freaking awesome. And it's got a nice, like a little more evenly distributed amount of wood to the body than a Strat. Explorers and Vs. These are generally considered trend guitars. So similar to what this generation is looking at when it comes to like IRs and plugins and the multi-scale and the headless guitars. I know multi-scale is more accurate representation. That might be, but these are also considered the same kind of a thing. They're a trend. There's a lot more wood in the Explorer than there is in the Flying V. There's definitely a lot more lightweight. This is very comfortable to sit down with, well, at least I find. This I find to be very comfortable as well, but a lot of people don't find it comfortable. And the last type of guitar that I'll go over here are the semi-hollow bodies and the hollow bodies. These guitars here can sometimes feel plucky. The three that I own do not, luckily. But because of the chambering of the body and obviously the openness and everything, it has a lot more resonance when you're playing, especially acoustically, and can give you a lot of great tones. An ES335 here, even though it's missing the high E string right now, thanks to my 6-year-old daughter, they can do basically anything. They can go from jazz to country to rock to full-on metal. An ES335 gets a pass when it comes to metal. I don't know why. Some people will be like, Ted Nugent, yo! But they can just do it, they can handle it, and they sound freaking awesome. So that's really all I have to kind of go through. So takeaways from this, I'm sure pointless video, would be every generation feels the same. So when it comes to why are people still playing guitars that were made in the 50s, why is it that, or what people think is the 90s, I don't know why. My generation thinks the 90s was like 5 years ago. I know, I get that. But you're going to have the exact same experience. And you should have the exact same experience. A lot of people will know that they've grown as a musician once they are considered an old guy or old gal or whatever. Once you've got those years under your belt. Does not mean that you're not a good guitar player within 6 months or whatever. But imagine where you are in 6 months and put that up to like 20 or 30 years. You've gone through all of your phases at that point. And you have more clear decisions on what guitars you do like. So as a 40-year-old, I'm old, I know what I like, and I know what I don't like, and I know what guitars that if I were to look at them, they might be a waste of time to myself. Because I've wasted my time. I've had a lot of benefits from trying out numerous guitars. I probably have owned over 100 guitars. I own 48 right now, and I would like to get that down to 40, so I could probably bring that back up to 48 or 50 again. But again, like, if you want to say that my generation plays outdated guitars, or you know, like it's old people boomer brag guitars or what have you, I think I have like 2 custom shop guitars. That's it. And you know, I've showed a lot of guitars in the video, which I know some people are like, he's just bragging about the guitars that he owns. It cost me money over 30 years to get all of the guitars and all of the amps that I own. They all make me happy. I work a lot, and I spend a lot of time with my family. And when I'm not doing that, when I'm working, I'm usually thinking about gear. So I like to surround myself with guitars that I really enjoy, that make me happy to play. And I have so many because I like to have different experiences. Even though with Strats, they're almost all the same experience, but there's some differences. So absolutely, you can love the multi-scale guitars, and you can play multi-scales for the next 30 or 40 years. And if you love them then I'm happy for you. If you don't like them then I'm happy for you, as long as you find something that you enjoy playing. So again, I'm Ryan, and I like to play out-of-date guitars because I am old. And another thing, did you know that the Stranberg guitars that everyone's buying, those are the UNDERCOMPANY? That's the Epiphone. $2,000 to $4,000 for an Indonesian guitar. Kids!